The Battle for Maretime Bay Part 2, the follow-up episode to Part 1 that somehow managed to be 100 times more epic than its predecessor. Yeah, I know, how is that even possible? A couple weeks ago, I covered the first part of this wacky duology in its own dedicated review, and in it, I had a lot to say about the way the episode meticulously set up every important story element. I broke down each and every scene in great detail, to the point where my review ended up being way longer than I initially expected. But, if you guys have seen the admittedly shorter runtime of this video, you'll know that there isn't as much to talk about here. Not for a bad reason, just, if you thought last episode was off the wall insane, oh boy, you ain't seen nothing yet. This Part 2 episode basically acts as one big giant action set piece, split almost equally between an A plot and a B plot. Part 1 did all the important story setup work, and Part 2 is just the writers going all out on the action. And as such, we only have two main storylines to talk about here. That being Sunny and Zip's POV in the forest, and Hitch's at the Bright House. But don't worry, even though we have a bit less to talk about here, I still have a lot that I want to say. Because holy cow, this was epic. I have never seen a Taruto episode so confident in itself that it basically decides, yeah, let's have our epic payoff be the most off-the-wall thing this generation has ever seen. And oh boy, they did it. This episode not only managed to pay off all of its storylines it set up, but it did so in a way that is just so immensely satisfying. Expect a lot of gushing and geeking out in this video. So let's finally get into how the Battle for Maretime Bay Part 2 wrote a satisfying payoff. Chapter 1. Starting off with a bang. The episode opens by instantly dumping you right in the middle of the action. No recapping, no time to get caught up, we're just picking up exactly right where we left off last time. Heck, Director Brian Fung even said in his notes that this opening shot was meant to be a mirror of the same moment from the ending of Part 1, but shown from a different camera angle this time. Literally no time has passed. What I love about this creative choice is that it's an immediate hook for viewers. Obviously, the script was meant to be converted into a full episode, but the devil incarnate stopped that from happening. Imagine if Part 2 became a full episode, instantly starting with an action scene would hook kids right from the get-go. It would grab their attention immediately, as stuff is already happening on screen in the first few seconds, with no time to look away. Now, I did already praise the opening scene of Part 1 for being more gradual and methodical with the setup, so you might be wondering why I'm praising Part 2 for doing the complete opposite here. Simple. Part 2 doesn't need to establish anything. Unlike the slow hook of its predecessor, Part 2 doesn't have to concern itself with setting up the characters or the story, because, well, Part 1 already did all the work. We could just start off with a bang and let the actual battle this two-parter was named after officially begin. This episode can get away with an immediate action-y hook, because we as the audience already know where our characters are at in the story. And because we already know, we can just continue right from where Part 1 left off. This is, again, part of the benefits of having a longer runtime to flesh out your story. You don't have to rush out anything. We already got our big establishment episode. The characters are already where they need to be. And the job that Part 2 now has is to pay off all of its established storylines. We then see Sunny and Hitch leading the charge and the Earth Ponies as the community pillars they are. Hitch is still his confident, fearless self in the previous part, which I adore, and Sunny wastes no time in taking charge and blasting a vine to dust. Then our prominent background ponies are given a bit of spotlight with their individual contributions. I really like that the background ponies are given stuff to do here. One thing that Taruto excelled at during its run was making actual characters out of the background ponies, at least the important ones, by giving them prominent screen time throughout certain episodes. The show did that to the point where you knew each of their individual personalities and names just by looking at them. And this episode continued that trend by making them an active part of the main conflict. Their parts may not be as detailed as the PTS edited version, and there's certainly no Sprout cameo, but I still enjoy how the original visualized this moment. The three-way split screen was really cool in my opinion. I wish we got to see this episode animated, or even in an animatic, as I'm sure it would have been a crazy visual. After that little action scene, we get a bit of a cool down moment, where our ponies discuss the main threat. Zip shows her friends those photos she took earlier, and this is the moment where Misty realizes that she's actually seen the Alpha Pod in her spellbook before. Now you could make the argument that this is a bit of a contradiction from Part 1, given that it was established 2 times that Misty does not know where any of the vines are coming from, and that she's never seen anything like this. But I'd argue it's not really a contradiction. One, because in those aforementioned 2 scenes, Misty is not really looking through her spellbook specifically, just regular books on magic. I kinda messed up when describing that before. Whoops. And 2, I doubt Misty would even recall what the Alpha Pod actually looks like, unless she sees it up close. Or through pictures in this case. It's probably such a niche spell, probably in chapter 100 or something. No, the real question I have is, how does a spell like this even exist in the present day, when it's obviously established to be 100% futuristic magic that, to our knowledge, only Zinnia has mastered in the future? But to answer that, we'd have to figure out just how many years in the future Odessa and Zinnia actually hail from. And that is something I am not interested in doing in this video specifically. This is a review, not a theory video. I think we can let that detail slide, as any story is bound to have some lapses in logic if you look hard enough. The important part of the scene that matters is that this is where the episode splits into an A and B plot. Sunny decides that she and Zip are gonna battle it out with the Alpha Pod, whereas Hitch is assigned to protect the Pride House with the Earth Ponies. I love this moment, as it shows Sunny and Hitch both being leaders. Sunny is confident, poised, knows exactly what to do, and she once again proves just how much she's learned throughout the show about leadership. That doesn't mean that Hitch was just left to the wayside though. Oh no, not by a long shot. He gets a really epic line here as Sunny and Zip fly off, and he rallies the defense. Earth Ponies, assemble. Oh my hoofness, that goes so hard. Not only is this line without a doubt a very obvious reference to Avengers Endgame, in which case, okay Jessica and Naomi, I see you. Fellow MCU fans I see. What is it with LP and referencing Endgame? But it also cements this Hitch as a force to be reckoned with. As I said in part 1, I adore this Hitch. This is the confident sheriff that I think so many fans have been asking for. Now, I'm a fan of Hitch's character trajectory throughout G5. I think his arc of being a dragon dad to Sparky really brought out a mature side to him that we didn't know we needed. And even though he could be a bit goofy and cowardly at times, when he steps up, he really steps up. And this episode definitely shows that. The way he just charges into battle and leads, unafraid and willing to take no prisoners. I think if this episode was officially released, it would have been a shock to the system, and a massive middle finger to the G5 haters, who ragged on how the two shows portrayed our boy. Now, granted, hide-and-seek in its original state would have immediately ruined that momentum, but hey, a win is still a win. Look at how serious and driven Hitch is throughout both parts, how he immediately understands the assignment here. He doesn't run away, he doesn't question anything. Once Sunny gives him the order, he takes charge like a man. Or stallion in this case. What a glow-up. Chapter 2. The culmination to Zip's storyline. Sunny and Zip then fly over to the Bridalwood Forest to destroy the Alpha Pod in the next scene. And I just gotta comment on how much I love their dynamic. Mickey and Mark played around with them as a duo quite a bit, with Zip being more of the straight man duty first type to Sunny's more lighthearted, joking demeanor. And Taruto also played around with them for certain episodes. And yeah, it is great to see them team up here to fight the Alpha Pod. This scene specifically is about resolving Zip's storyline, and while I'd say it isn't as epic and awe-inspiring as Sunny's payoff, our detective still gets a really good contribution here. The Vines try to attack them, and we get another action scene, with Sunny and Zip ducking and trying to avoid being hit. This action scene is short, all things considered, but it leads to one of two awesome Cutie Mark Mantra moments throughout the episode. Zip flies into the air and creates a spinning tornado to distract the Vines near Sunny. And this bit is honestly really cool. I love how the script visualized the whirlwind coming to life, with emphasis being put on the weather magic, and the lightning pulling the Vines away. Looking at the director's notes, Brian even suggested an entire detailed sequence of events as to how Zip actually makes that tornado. And looking at this all in detail, imagine how cool of a scene that would have been. Like, this is cinema-worthy visual description. I really enjoyed seeing the tornado being brought back here after the Pedal Gala. After seeing how Zip took charge in that special in the fight against Zinnia and used the tornado on her, I like that we got a bit more continuity between episodes, with it also being brought back into the fold to destabilize the Vines. Zip's whole storyline throughout this two-parter was about using her detective skills to find the Alpha Pod and give Sunny the means to destroy it. And as the co-protagonist here, I think she accomplished that beautifully. By creating the tornado and distracting the Vines, she's giving Sunny time to blast the Alpha Pod to dust, which she actually does later. These two really work well together as a team. Chapter 3. Visual creativity and why the Hopaladas work. We cut back to the Bright House battle, where we're treated to a very visually creative scene. Like, really visually creative. You can just tell that Jessica and Naomi were having a ton of fun writing this. Hitch leads his fellow Earth Ponies into battle like the goat he is, and almost immediately, we get the payoff to Posey's little revenge arc that started in part 1. Yeah, remember that detail? It comes back here, and her attempt goes just as well as you'd expect. But, although Posey very clearly failed to get justice for her geraniums, why does this moment still work? Well, aside from being a very obvious comedic bit, it also makes Posey an active part of the main conflict, and it shows an evolution to her character. She's now helping out the townsponies of Maretime Bay. She's actively fighting alongside them, and choosing to put herself on the line for her town, instead of just shunning every pony like she used to. And I think this goes to show that her prior 2 solo episodes definitely had an effect on her development. It's satisfying to see Posey be an active character here, because P plus P equals BFFs and Sleepover now feel all the more meaningful. Those episodes were all about showing a different side to Posey, and they made you invested in her, to the point where you now care about her involvement in this battle, however intensely comedically stupid the motivation may be. Then we get Dolly and Hitch teaming up to bring a literal tree to life, Izzy throwing rotten tomatoes at the vines, and Pip using the power of song to stop carnivorous flowers. Yes, all of this is real. Can I just say how cool of a sequence this is? Just think about how this all would have looked like on screen. It would have been an absolutely insane sequence. The tree coming to life and marching towards the vines has got to be my favorite part of the scene, as it's just so out there in a way that only Tarantel could pull off. The pile of huge tomatoes bearing a vine underneath was also a funny addition. Again, you can feel the creativity just oozing from the page with each moment. It's pure spectacle, but you know what? It's the good kind of spectacle, as this episode clearly establishes a purpose behind all of it. Tarantel's spectacle doesn't always work, it depends on the story. But when it works, it really works. And I think this is a good example. And all throughout, the stakes just keep escalating one after the other with increasing intensity. In the next scene, we get the Hopalatas actually joining the battle and using their unique magic to blast back the vines. I am so happy that these bunnies actually got to be relevant to the plot after cameoing in part 1. Now, like Allura, they don't really get much to do in this two-parter, but I actually like their inclusion here far more than Allura's, and I think their moment works a lot better. Now, you might be wondering, why does the Hopalata's inclusion work better than Allura's? Well, here's why. Their role in the story has a clear setup and payoff. They actually become a part of the fight against the vine, unlike our Hypno-Kitty, and their mini storyline in part 2 is all about overcoming their fear. For so long, they lived in fear of the unknown and hid themselves away for probably centuries. But now, faced with their new/old home about to be destroyed, they decide that they're not going to run away this time. This is their home, and they're going to protect it. They all start hopping in unison and fighting back, no longer choosing to live by fear or let their generational trauma define who they are. They've had enough. And I think this is a really good combination to their storyline throughout the season. They move back to Equestria, and now, when the vines attack, they're faced with an impossible decision. Are they going to cower and hide? Or are they going to overcome their trauma and fight for the home they just managed to reclaim? And this episode provides a definitive answer. It's far better than how Allura was treated, as there's a clear character flaw they have to overcome here. And part 2 shows them actively making that choice, instead of just cutting to the epilogue, where that epiphany was already gained. I never thought I'd be praising how the Hopalatas were written over Allura in an episode, but hey, these bunnies have proven themselves as more than worthy additions to the LMP canon over the course of their screen time. On to my favorite part. Yeah, it seriously gets better from here. Chapter 4. Maximum Epicness. Then we get Sunny's payoff at the very end of the escalating stakes montage. And oh my huffness, this scene is so good. So, Sunny begins her Cutie Mark mantra, and we get flashbacks to important Cutie Mark moments throughout the series, visually showcasing all that development Sunny has gone through, all the key moments she spent with her friends, throughout the whole show. And after coursing through so many important tentpole moments, the last memory is of when she was a filly, gazing through that telescope with Argyle. A more innocent time in her life. That fateful night when she was just beginning to discover who she wanted to be. Sunny's journey has visually come full circle. This memory montage is representative of Sunny's entire life, flashing right before her eyes. From the incredible feats of friendship that she would later accomplish as an adult, all the way back to the aspirations and dreams of unity that she had as a filly. It's all come down to this. The make or break moment for Equestria. Sunny's entire storyline, her entire life story, distilled into one montage. Her eyes open, and we get the ultimate payoff, with her dramatically declaring, "With hope bright as the sun!" Her magic fully unleashes, and she blasts the vines to dust. Yes. 1,000 times yes! This moment feels like the ultimate culmination. Sunny has finally fully come into her own here, and is unleashing the full power for Alicorn form. This feels like a cinema-worthy cheer moment. The way it's visually described, the wording, it really sparks the imagination. It's satisfying because we followed Sunny all the way up to this moment, and this is where she fully takes charge and acts on everything she's learned over the course of her journey. This scene is meant to reward you for following Sunny as the protagonist throughout the whole show. It took the Cutie Mark moments that we didn't think much of before, moments representing the friendship and the bond Sunny formed with her friends over the course of her journey, and made them into something important in the story retroactively. From there, we cut back to Maretime Bay, where the Earth ponies are fighting. The magic finds them and envelops them all in a golden aura, and this is where Misty realizes that Sunny has found the Alpha Pod. With renewed hope, Hitch boldly springs into action and leads the Earth ponies in a charge, shouting, "For Sunny!" I'm sorry, are we writing LMP or the most epic fantasy movie of all time? Apparently both. No joke, I cheered when reading this for the first time. This is the moment the episode just fully goes off the rails. It's gone full loony at this point, with dramatic music and a charging army. Holy cow! The way Battle of Helm's Deep is explicitly referenced here, the way each pony's power is individually described, the added detail Brian put of each pony acting out their powers in fluent and dynamic action, this was made to be animated. This should have been animated. Hasbro, I hate you! The visual of a charging army led by the remaining main four is just something that's just made for the screen. Words alone cannot do this scene justice. And the cherry on top is that Jessica and Naomi wrote, "It's totally epic" here. They totally knew what they were doing. And the battle finally finishes, with the seamless visual transition of the army smashing into the vines, and Sunny blasting the Alpha Pod to dust at the exact same moment. The Crystal Bright House destroys the remaining vines, and the day is saved. Have I mentioned yet just how much I love this episode? Chapter 5. We were robbed big time. In the final scene, the main six clean up Maretime Bay after the chaos. Allura comes back and basically says, "Sorry for calling Maretime Bay a dump, oh, I won't do it again." Yeah, sure buddy. And our ponies share a big group hug, with the episode ending on Pip making a short quip. And that was the battle for Maretime Bay. This was so epic, OMP. I pretty much said everything I needed to say in part 1, so I just gotta reiterate, look at how confidently this two-parter was written from start to finish. The team knew what they were doing here. They believed in this show. They believed in it so much they could go with bigger stories like this. This two-parter shows just what exactly G5 was capable of, with Taruto leading the charge. And the fact that we got robbed of seeing episodes like this is something we should never, ever forget as a fandom. The serious tone, the dramatic direction, the mass amount of storylines packed in here, the satisfying payoff to said storylines. I am so impressed that an episode like this was even made. Even though it got robbed of its full potential, we still got the opportunity to see it in some form. We still got it brought to life through illustrations. Because fans took these scripts that were abandoned and decided to make something out of them. And, although I do have my issues on how scripts are changed, I think ultimately, fans taking these leaks and making something out of them is the point. That's what I advocate for. Fans being the change that they want to see. Hasbro may be moving on to the next generation, and they ain't coming back, leaving this incredible story behind after hanging it out to dry. But that doesn't mean that we fans should do the same. The next video that I'm planning after this is a shorter PSA type vid, similar to that defense announcement, making the case as to why G5 still matters in the big 2026. I really want to hammer home why we should still talk about this generation going into the future of LLP. So stay tuned for that video. I know it's been hard being a G5 fan these past few years, but, you know, at least episodes like this that are literally awesomeness incarnate serve as good reminders for why we're still here. And regardless of whether or not you personally support PTS and what they're doing with these leaks, I think we can all agree that this show deserves so much better. And Hasbro, you're gonna live with the shame for the rest of your existence. We fans are gonna make sure of that. But what do you guys think of the Battle for Maretime Bay Part 2? Is it better than Part 1? Worse? What do you guys think of this two-parter as a whole? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. With that being said, this is Hawk Nightwing signing out until next time. Hoof to heart.